Hey guys, Joe Pye here at Advanced Innovations. Welcome back to my shop. You know, I would have to say the eyes have it. These wheels are going to get trepanned out. We're going to put some wood inserts in them. I'm going to use the same wood that I used for the chassis, and it's going to be, I would say, about halfway into it. And if I don't like it, hey, I can either turn the wheels around and use the brass side on the way out, or I can just make new ones because I do have more of this material on the shelf. I'm going to do this in a 3-jaw chuck with soft jaws. It's going to be trepanned with a high-speed steel tool. And then I'm going to make the wood inserts on the mill with a boring head. So let's get out to the shop and make it happen. These are the aluminum jaws that I will be using to do this particular job. These are called soft jaws. If you've never used soft jaws, well, the benefit to using them is you can create your own geometry in those jaws for the part that you want to hold without marring the outside. You can get incredibly close. And if in fact you don't get close enough, well, then you just move them in a little bit more and take another cut. You are not restricted to the use of soft jaws in a 3-jaw chuck or 6-jaw or whatever with round geometry. One of the great things of doing this is you put your soft jaws in your chuck, put a feature in your soft jaws, and then you can take the chuck off without unloosening the jaws, of course, and move over to your mill and mill squares in these or triangles or whatever, and you can hold irregular shapes with soft jaws. It is pretty cool if you've never done it. But today it's just going to be conventionally round, and instead of consuming a bunch of the jaw, I will probably leave my jaws open and just use a little bit of the inside. Enough to support it, not distort it. That's not what you want to do. And I will just start there. Set the chuck up, cut the jaws, cut the parts. Let's do it. The jaws I'll be using today were gifted to me by Masterman and Coville. So if you're looking for soft jaws, hit this website up. Maybe they have what you want. And thank you very much, guys, for the gift. That was unexpected and quite appreciated. Thank you. Here's a little trick that may serve you well. If you're going to use a pin or a piece of raw stock from around the shop to gap your jaws, if you don't have a spider or a Christmas tree to do so, when you stick that pin in there, make sure that it's just as far forward as it can be based on the depth of the feature you're going to cut in your jaws. But here's the trick. If you're using that piece of stock and you go too big with the feature that you cut in your jaws, well, you're pretty much out of luck. Just as a little safety precaution, wrap a piece of paper around that pin, tape, whatever, and that is now your safety margin. If you blow the feature, if the diameter of the pocket is too big after you bore it and you're not happy with the fit, well, unloosen the chuck, take the paper out, make the adjustment on your cross slide, and creep up on the feature. That little piece of paper will just give you a little bit of a safety margin. If you want more of a safety margin, wrap more paper around it. Simple. Let's bore the pocket, fit the jaws, fit the part. There we go. One of the benefits to boring soft jaws and boring a small pocket is you can actually check the pocket with calipers as you proceed through the feature, because you have opposing sides of the diameter or the chord across the center to check. On larger diameters, you don't have this luxury. I like to creep up on the feature that I cut, and the ideal fit for me is when the part just starts to fit in the pocket and will suspend by its own weight without falling in. And if it does go in and you need it closer, then by all means take that paper off. This is one of those operations that you absolutely do not want to rush. And when the part sticks in there, just barely hangs on it, that is exactly what I'm looking for. My final operation is to sweep the bottom of the pocket to make sure that I have a sharp corner for the part to nest against. All right, step one, the jaws are accurately bored. I'm very pleased with that. I'm going to keep the pressure nominal on the part. I'm not going to try to crush this thing. There's really no reason for it. And leaving a web of material in the back will certainly help to support the out of round that could occur if you apply too much pressure. Let me set up the Trepan tool, change the camera angle. Let's hollow these out. In a trepanning operation, there's going to be considerable surface contact at times, so you want to keep the tool choked up in the tool holder and not hanging out like a diving board. If it has to hang out, put a support block underneath it to help support the tool. Now, when you set your tool, you want your tool to be perfectly parallel, and I'm talking about that gap right there to the face of the part. The initial contact you make with this tool will tell you exactly how close you got that when you were setting it up. One thing you absolutely must pay attention to, and I'm going to fade back here for a second, is you are so focused on setting up the tool to the part, oh boy, that you may have overlooked Mr. Clearance here, and the jaw is going to come around and smack the compound, and that is what we call a crash. And you are going to get a round of applause and probably a pink slip, all in the same gesture from wherever you happen to do that, because it's going to ruin the machine pretty quick. Let me fade out here for a second, zoom out. Let me show you a couple of different ways to overcome that. You can overcome that by moving clear of the part, making sure that the chuck spins, and move the entire block in. Okay, as the block moves in, you can see that the tool is now coming close to the face. Make sure that whatever distance you want to travel, that you have that much beyond the face of the part. And I'll tell you a quick and dirty way to do that. Move the carriage around till your gap is minimal. I'm going to move it in. I'm going to actually bump the jaws and move it out about 1/8 of an inch. You move it out however far you're comfortable with, because when this thing is spinning, that is going to be pretty scary. That is now your 0 point on your digital. Okay, 0 right there. That gap is your 0 point. Move out the depth of your feature, and then move your whole block in until your tool contacts the face of your part. Now you know that when you go that deep with that tool, that you're still going to have that safety gap down there and nothing's going to crunch. The other way to buy yourself some room is to change the angle of the block and change the angle of the entire compound. And you can see that that gives you a mile of space. Ideal. Look at how much room there is. So by manipulating the entire setup, not just the extension of the tool, change the compound angle, change the position of the block, do whatever you need to do, but be sure that you have this room in your setup before that tool moves into the spinning part. That crunch makes a terrible sound, and it's something you're never going to forget. Feature will be 1/4 of an inch deep. That's about 6 millimeters. Machine is running at 425 RPM. This is a high-speed steel tool bit. When you have the luxury of a groove or a feature that is wider than the tool you're using, I like to take the center out of the groove first and then work the ID and the OD to the dimensions on the print. There you go, a couple more to do. We can make the wood inserts. First operation in making the wheels is to fly cut the material flat. And this particular surface that I'm forming right now will be the surface that's down inside of the trepan. So you'll never see this surface, but it's got to be true to the ID and OD features that I will create. First feature in line for the wheel, aside from the fly cut surface of course, will be the smaller diameter that goes over the brass hub. I will make 5 of these, and 1 will be the setup piece. The other 4 will actually be for the model. And with any kind of luck, I'll have 5 good pieces when I'm done, and I won't know which one was which. Changing over to a boring head now with a back boring operation. I'm going to plunge down into the wood to form the OD of the insert. Like anything else, regardless it's wood, plastic, metal, whatever, get close, check it, get close, and then finish it. For this particular run, I will get very close with the boring head, do all 5 wheels, and then come back for the finished pass. Because I want a very light load on this bar for the finish pass, the first pass here will be a full depth, full bite. And if the bar wants to jump around, we'll let it jump around. And realistically, the final pass will be less than a 64th of an inch, about 11 thousandths of an inch off the diameter of each one of these slugs. And this is the finished pass. Now I know I want my finished wheels to be at least as deep as that trepan. I can always sand it off after the fact. So the distance between the blade and the rip fence has got to be at least 250. I'm going to use 2 parallels. I know they are exactly 1/8 of an inch each. And sneaking them beside the blade, I can tell the distance from the blade to the face of the parallel is greater. So I think I'm in good shape. And this particular operation is just strictly going to put the wheels up against the fence, push it through, and we're going to have 5 wheels by the time I'm done. Doesn't get much easier than that, does it? I thought about this initially, and turning these out of a round dowel would have resulted in end grain on the wheels, and I don't think that would look correct because these wheels were normally laminates and planks, and it's a side grain that you want to see. So there you go. The wood inserts will be held into the brass with crazy glue. Just a ring of crazy glue, and believe it or not, these are tight enough that it's almost a force fit, and you can feel the air rushing out as you're pressing this thing down into the brass receiver. I'm hoping this dries pretty quick because I want to put it back in the 3-jaw and face these off. For the wood facing operation, I'm going to use an extremely aggressively ground high-speed steel tool bit, and I'm going to go 50-50 on the facing operation. I'm going to start at the outside and sweep in, and then I'm going to reposition the tool to the bore and sweep out. That way, if there's any tendency for this wood to chip or shatter or fragment or for any pieces to pull out, it's not going to be right at the brass wood mating line. That would be very obvious. I want that line to be extremely sharp and crisp, and doing it this way would assure that if there's any tear out, it'll be midfield and it'll just look like part of the grain. The remainder of the lot was done exactly the same way. Start on the outside, sweep on the inside, finish pass, and finish pass. Light sand after the fact, done. Well, there you go, guys. At the end of the day, that's what you're going to have. Wooden inlays in the brass wheels, and I really do like that. Thank you to everyone that was honest enough to leave their opinion and say go with the wood. It was overwhelming that the wood was the way to go. Didn't think I'd like it initially, but I certainly do, and I'm glad that I was pushed into it. Thank you for leaving the comments as you did. This is Joe Pye at Advanced Innovations in Austin, Texas. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're well and happy and safe. Me, I'm out.